Good. We'll do a little kirtan. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyanvishatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Nandanishwara Radha Nandanishwara Radha Nandanishwara Shri Radhe Jaya Radha Nandanishwara Radha Nandanishwara Radha Nandanishwara Shri Radhe Jai Jagannath Jaya Baladev Jaya Subhadra Jaya Sudarshan Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladev Jaya Subhadra Jaya Sudarshan Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada ki Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, very nice to see you all again. Vanchakalpatrubhyascha kripasindhubhya cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna. So here we are, we're going to continue with the Gita. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudinayat Nashtaprayashu Bhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Vishnu Krishnaya Vantale Hare Krishna. Well, last lesson we began chapter 4 and we entered this whole realm of karma and its considerations, karma, akarma, vikarma, those three concepts. And the start of the chapter gave us a lot of information, a lot of insight into Krishna's existence, his nature. And very, very important verses were covered in that first part of chapter 4. So I think it would be nice for us to just refresh ourselves just by reading the first 10 verses or so, 11 verses. So maybe we can just read 2 each. We can do it in this order as you come on my screen. So Tanay, then Smita, then Mazar, then Bidisha, and then Guhanesh and Simon. Okay, so just remember your sequence. And if you can just do 2 verses. So Tanay, if you start with 2 verses, and then the next one can
The
just
English and the Sanskrit both?
Just English, please.
The personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna said, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god Vivashvan, and Vivashvan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind, and Manu in turn instructed it to Ishavaku. This supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in the course of time, the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it appears to be lost.
That very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you because you are my devotee as well as my friend and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of this science. Arjuna said, the sun god Vivaswan is senior by birth to you. How am I to understand that in the beginning you instructed this science to him?
The personality of Godhead said, many, many births both to you and I have passed. I can remember all of them, but you cannot. O subduer of the enemy. Although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all living entities, my internal energy, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form.
Text 7. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. Text 8. to deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to re-establish the principles of religion, I myself appear millennium after millennium. Hare Krishna.
One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. Being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me, many, many persons in the past become purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attain transcendental love for me.
As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects. O son of Pritha, men in this world desire success in fruitive activities, and therefore they worship the demigods. Quickly, of course, men get results from fruitive work in this world.
Perfect. So hopefully that's just given you a chance to reflect again on those verses where really Krishna's actual position is established. His role in coming to this world is emphasized, and a little hint is given to us as to when he comes. Paritranaya sadhunam, to protect the devotees. Vinashaya cha duskritam, to annihilate the miscreants. And then many other reasons are there. For example, sometimes the chain of knowledge is broken. The chain of authentic knowledge is broken and becomes replaced with a hodgepodge or various speculations. At that time, Krishna needs to come and re-establish things. But he still does so according to his schedule. We cannot say that whenever there is a decline of religion at any particular instant he will magically appear. He doesn't do that, right? His incarnations are scheduled to appear at certain times, with thousands of years in between them. So rather it's the case that when things get to a certain stage, which are not conducive for the particular plan Krishna has for that moment in time, then Krishna appears to correct the situation. Now, hopefully it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that as Kali Yuga proceeds, the world, the age, the level of knowledge is going to decrease, spiritual knowledge specifically. Materially, maybe, yes, knowledge will be more widely spread. Who knows of its authenticity? But with different technology, AI and things, yes, access to conventional knowledge may become easier. But one thing is a fact, that spiritual knowledge and the practice of it will decrease and eventually disappear. And it's not that Krishna will turn up immediately to correct that. The next appearance of Krishna is scheduled in 427,000 years. That's a long time away. And who would like to wait till that happens? At that time, Kalki appears. And he doesn't do much negotiation with the miscreants. He simply kills them all. That's the type of discipline that's required at that point, because everyone has become thieves and rogues and dacoits, and there's literally no point trying to rectify them. And of course, then by doing so, a new Satya Yuga is ushered in at that point. So you can imagine we have the understanding of Lord Chaitanya's golden age of around 10,000 years or so. Well, it's not that devotion will suddenly stop after that point, but it will become less and less and less. And then you've got a long span of great trouble and difficulty. So this is all Krishna's design, though. That's the point. That Krishna runs this world according to a system and a plan, and it's carried out by his agents. And for all of us, we are placed into the world at different times to benefit from whatever we deserve, and in reciprocation with our desires. So we are here in this part of this golden age, where access to the holy name, access to scripture, access to an authentic presentation based upon Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself is currently available to us. And facilities there at the moment for spreading this movement through different mechanisms, media, technology, and just the just the construction of the society. Currently, it permits it, but that won't always be the case. So we are in a fortunate position at the moment, and we will benefit by taking advantage of that. And this authentic knowledge that's given in this chapter is like our bread and butter, the ABC of our studies. Understanding the significance of spirit versus matter, and understanding the significance of Krishna and his supremacy above all other living entities. These are key principles. Okay. So we started covering this topic of action, inaction, and forbidden action, and we moved roughly up to around text 18, where that cryptic verse is there. One who sees action in action. Karmaniya karmaya pashyeda karmani cha karmaya sabuddhiman manusyeshu sayukta kritsna karma krit. One who sees inaction in action and action in inaction is intelligent among men, and he is in the transcendental position, although engaged in all sorts of activities. So can someone just give me a brief explanation as to what the difference is between those three items? Karma, akarma, and vikarma? We touched on it towards the end of the last class.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Smita?
Karma means the action, and vikarma means that which is prohibited by the Shastras, and akarma is the one that doesn't incur any karmic reactions.
Yes, that's right. So when we say karma in general, that generally means actions which are in accordance with scripture or not contrary to the principles of scripture. So they're actions which are not sinful by definition. So that is one category called karma. And then you have vikarma, which is forbidden actions, sinful actions that will incur you problems. And then there is akarma, actions which are performed which do not actually result in a material consequence. And that so far we've understood to be the goal of our work of karma yoga. That is indeed what karma yoga means. Performing actions so that they give us a link to Krishna. They allow us to transcend the material world. So I think what we can do is we'll continue reading this chapter before we get into a much more detailed study of Karma Yoga in chapter 5. So text 19, please. Let's start with you again, Tanay. If you can remember this order, you just continue as your time comes.
One is understood to be in full knowledge, whose every endeavor is devoid of desire for sense gratification. He is said by sages to be a worker for whom the reactions of work have been burnt up by the fire of perfect knowledge.
Right. So knowledge is required for us to attain this state. But it has some prerequisites. We have to be, well, it says here in full knowledge. Full knowledge is required to fully burn up the consequences. But actually for devotees, it is not that difficult to be in full knowledge. Because even the very basic principles that we have covered so far put you pretty close to full knowledge in terms of your understanding of your identity and the identity of Krishna, and especially Janma Karma Chame Divyam. This is a very advanced level of knowledge delivered to us very, very quickly. And we can see how powerful Srila Prabhupada's mission is, because by the process of chanting the holy name and Sankirtan, we are very quickly able to understand this point. Whereas many others, even if they may have read the Gita for a long time, will be quite confused about this at this point of their studies. They will have all sorts of other speculations, ideas, and they will not be in a platform of full knowledge, but really with the power of Lord Chaitanya's mission, the holy name, and the chance to have our Bhaktivedanta purports. we can be very quickly situated in full knowledge as described here. Now the next part is a little more tricky. The endeavor, every endeavor, should be devoid of desire for sense gratification. Now it is a little trickier. It is actually required in order to be in full knowledge. Well, or you could say if you're in full knowledge, you will also achieve this state in an ultimate sense. But if our motivations are purely for Krishna, then we stand a good chance of achieving this. Now, if I were to ask everyone here, honestly, how many of you are completely devoid of desire for sense gratification? Anyone raise your hands if you are completely devoid of the desire for sense gratification? Probably, if we're honest, we'll probably say no, because it's kind of like an inherent part of us, sense gratification, and we know we just indulged in it just a few moments ago, and we're probably going to in a few moments' time. Sense gratification of different types. For the tongue, belly, genitals, all of those are in one line, as in the Nectar of Instruction is described. Actions pertaining to those, then intellectual entertainments, other items to do with power, control. These are all sense gratificatory elements for people. And we're all after those things. Maybe we want achievement, ambition, success of different types. Are we really devoid of desire for these? Well, it's possible, actually. It's possible. And that is one advantage you do get in terms of ashram training, or the chance to engage in ashram life. At least for those moments when you're in that environment, you do have the chance to dedicate yourself entirely for Krishna's pleasure. And ideally, an environment should be created around for those who have that opportunity, so that other necessities become minimized and do not become something that drains your mental time. If you have a situation, you have a culture, you have devotees around you who will constantly remind you and create an environment for you where serving Krishna is literally the only purpose, that is a very blissful kind of experience. And whilst definitely we have, that's only one of the ashrams within our Vedic system, only one of the ashrams, the Brahmacharya ashram. And then you have the Grihastha ashram, the Vanaprastha, the Sannyasa ashram as well. It is nice if people have a chance, whichever ashram they will eventually be in, to get a chance to spend some time in that sort of environment. That is very, very advantageous towards personal growth and developing one's conviction and faith in Krishna. It's very nice, and it gives us a taste. And then later on, when we then have to adopt other duties, we are able to perform duties without a desire for sense gratification, having had that training. And then even if you work, even if you are involved in handling lots of money and so many other items turn up, if ultimately your focus and your consciousness is that the most important thing in my life is service to Krishna, and all my activities are ultimately designed to serve him, then you can be actually living this verse, whichever ashram you're in. It's possible. But you can see it's difficult also. It's difficult because the more distractions you have, the more obligations, the more worldly affairs you indulge in, the more tricky this particular item becomes. Devoid of desire for sense gratification. That is the kind of crux of it that keeps us bound here. And really, when one is at that stage, the fire of perfect knowledge could be said to have burnt up all your previous reactions. This actually gives us actually some confidence that this karma process, although it is strong and it is quite uncompromising, only actually exists for our rectification. It doesn't exist for eternal damnation. Its aim is not to suppress and give us trouble. It's actually an educational process. When we actually understand what the purpose of it is, what the purpose of punishment is, what the purpose of reward is, we actually, through that fire of knowledge, qualify ourselves to be freed of reactions. If someone's got the lesson and got the message, you don't need to punish them anymore. That's the basic principle at work here. Through that fire of knowledge, one acts and behaves in a certain way. And Krishna removes any sinful traits that may have existed there. And he does it through different mechanisms, but he does it. Name bhakta pranashyati, he says. Just surrender unto me, manmana bhavamad bhakto. I will take aham tvam sarva papebhyo. He gives all these reassurances, right? So Krishna consciousness can achieve something that no other process can. If we become fully in knowledge of him, fully apply it, and start burning up the reactions of our past work. Okay, are you all with me so far? Okay, any questions on that? We're going to cover certain traits and certain symptoms, and we won't touch on each verse really, but there are certain points. Text 22, well, 21 as well, gives up a sense of proprietorship. I'm going to get the board up again, actually. It was quite good last time. Let's identify a few. Can you see that? Has the board popped up? All right. Let's just identify some key principles here. I'm just going to do some cut and paste and see if that works. Okay, there we go. And you see that? Okay. That's one item. Gives up. Oh, I've got a. Don't need that one. Gives up sense of proprietorship over one's possessions. I don't know how to make this multiple lines, but I'm going to get a bit. Anyway, we'll try it, see what happens. Can you see that this is from text 21? Then one acts also, as the next stages, acts only for the bare necessities of life. Satisfied with gain which comes of its own accord. Right? Free from duality, okay. These will get progressively more tricky. Free from
Hare
duality.
Krishna Prabhu.
Uh-huh.
Actually, the last class we were given this homework to do, Prabhu.
Yes. Oh, did you do it? Was it this particular list here?
Yes, Prabhu.
Oh, okay. Would you like to show us?
Yes, Prabhu. I'll have a look like how I can share it, or probably I could have
Oh,
the
right,
camera
okay.
on. And
Yes, I remember now. I had asked you to do this. You can just share your screen. I think you have permission. I hope you do. Okay, I'm just going to change that. Share the screen. All right. Do you have it in text form or what is it?
I think Mataji has it written down on a piece of paper.
Oh,
So she's trying to show it on the camera.
that's what, Prabhu. I had written in my book, so I don't know how to.
oh, I
I don't know.
see. I see. Okay. Yeah, I don't know how you could do that easily. Let's continue this exercise, and you can tell me if there was something extra on your lists that didn't quite make it here. Okay. How many did you have in your list? Okay, she's
I
gone.
have 13 points, Prabhu.
13 points. Okay, and some of
Yes.
the ones we have here are on that list?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, good. Well, why don't you read out some of them and read out a couple of points you have there.
So I have found the common theme as the feature of the persons whose endeavor is devoid of the desire for sense gratification. So that is the common, like the theme.
Yes.
And the points under that from 419, the first point is he's in full knowledge. The second point, his reactions are all burned up. And the third point, from 420, is satisfied, independent, abandons attachment to results, even though seen engaged in activities.
Okay. You've kind of put the end results of the person's behavior. That's true. I guess we're looking more into the actions that the person does. So he acts without duality, for example. The person acts without envy. The person is satisfied in their normal life. It doesn't hanker for excess. You know, if the boss gives you a pay rise, satisfied, you know, not that worried or saying, I wish I got more or something like that. Okay. Is never entangled, steady in success and failure. See, there's a difference between, take for example, text 22. There's a difference between this point, coming on the screen now, steady in both success and failure, and the next point, which is never entangled. There's a little difference there, because this one, steady in both success and failure, is something that you can do. Is never entangled is more of an end result, which isn't directly an act that you will do. You will try and be detached, but you can't guarantee that you will be never entangled. That's not really in your control. So we're looking more at the actions, concrete things that you can do here. We can just spend some time looking at these 6 here. Gives up all sense of proprietorship over his possessions. Who has possessions here? Everyone? Probably everyone has possessions. How do you give up sense of proprietorship over your possessions? How could you actually do it?
I could maybe perhaps answer that. So we assume that we have like that whatever materialistic item we have, we assume it's ours, but then we know that we came with nothing in this world, so we're gonna live in this world with nothing, sort of thing. And whatever we have, we just assume it's ours, but it's just temporary. Everything is temporary, even like relationship, like friendship wise. You can see it yourself, like you're friends with one person, you're like, oh no, this is my friend, but no, you then realize after like primary school you don't even like talk to them, or like the same with secondary school. This is like a common example, but then people like certain things like house or like money, this is my money, this is my house, it ends up being the idea, oh yeah, because I live here, this is mine. But we need to understand that everything that we have in this world is more or less temporary.
That is a very good technique for doing that, to realize it's temporary. But we are also in the temporary mode of operation, and that doesn't always work, because even though you know something is temporary, you may still need it for this temporary moment. And the difficulty is being freed from the attachment and addiction to it, even though you know theoretically it's temporary. So is absolutely correct what you've said. We need to just churn it a bit more to kind of develop some intellectual considerations, some thought processes that will help us give up that proprietorship. Proprietorship specifically means owning something, or it's mine. Actually, who does everything belong to?
Krishna.
Krishna.
Krishna, yes.
We are just caretaker.
We're caretakers. And even if we were involved in manipulating the matter to produce those objects and to acquire them through our effort and work and labor and salary, still all of those ingredients were supplied by Krishna. All the intelligence that allowed us to do what we did was supplied by Krishna. The sustenance that allows us to even exist comes from Krishna. We may think, I did a fine day's work today. But do we even consider what it required for us to do a fine day's work? Well, number one, it required a planet. It required some gravity. It required water for us, heat and light. It required oxygen. It required encouragement from others. It required a facility of all types. It required some personal endeavor. It required some inherent intelligence, maybe. It required senses to function. Were you responsible for any of that? The actual honest answer is no. So people are given in this realm, this universe, in any planet, they're given a region of control within a vast region which is not under their control. They're given a certain set of areas within which they can control. For example, you can make some choices regarding your own body, but you cannot make all possible choices. For example, you can control your breathing, right? Breathing is a very interesting one. It is kind of automatically running, while at the same time you can exert control on it. And that's good because, you know, when we forget or when we're asleep, it's very good. It keeps going without our assistance, without our conscious assistance. So that you could control that. What about your heartbeat? Is that something that you control directly? You can't actually, even if you wanted to. You can work yourself up into a certain frenzy, and you can do round the houses things to get your heartbeat up or down. You do certain. It's not direct control though. You don't have direct control of those muscles and the signals and all of that. Your legs, your hands, you can move them, but you don't have direct control over the mechanisms within them. And then the internal organs, how they function, that's outside of your control altogether. So even us as functioning living beings only have control over a small portion of our physical makeup and over one portion of our mental makeup as well. None of the rest of it is actually in our hands. So this idea of possessions, proprietorship, ownership, acquisition, we learn to just cool down a little and just honestly understand that none of this was entirely my doing. In fact, I couldn't have had any of this without considerable input from other sources, even including the basic foundation of as I said, you know, land, gravity, air, water. What are your thoughts on that? Is that easy to understand? It should be. It's quite a straightforward set of considerations, right? We've been protected by the Lord so far, and with our faculties and our abilities. And what does it mean to say this is mine? We don't even have the right to to do. So there are many considerations you can make so that you become detached from a particular object through knowledge again. Acting, okay, let's do the next one. Acts for the bare necessities of life. Someone give us some insights into that. And by the way, can I just recommend everyone, please turn on your cameras. It's a much better way to interact. It's like we're all together in a room then.
I have a question of what you said,
Okay.
Haribol. So, you know, from an atheist perspective, right? I was thinking, oh, what if someone comes up and says, oh, everything is just the way it is, or you just accept it? If that makes sense, how would you tackle that point?
Well, it is, but it's still wasn't something that you did. So, yes, at this point of this analysis, we're not really attributing any of that to Krishna specifically, but we are and even the atheists will be very, will find it very difficult to deny this fact that they didn't do it. If they do, there's something wrong with them. They're not. If they claim they were responsible for the planet or for the earth, or they may have some other issues that they need to address. There may be a sense of self-importance which goes way over something reasonable. But even with the atheistic mentality, they can still understand that they're not, their possessions, their acquisitions, they're not responsible for them. There's so many other factors involved. Bare necessities of life. Okay, what's the advantage of this?
I think it means, Prabhu Hare Krishna, that we only work for those things that we require, so not additional sense gratification. I don't need to earn so much extra money because I need to go to the bar, I need to spend time on entertainment or something like this. Just working for the simple bare necessities of life, being satisfied with Krishna's arrangement in my life, and then that sort of frees me up to spend my additional time advancing in my Krishna consciousness.
Yes, that's the crux of it, really. You can surround yourself with luxuries and all sorts of complicated arrangements. As someone said once, when you're asleep, how much space are you actually aware of that you're sleeping in? I mean, the first point is you're not aware of anything at all because you're asleep. But even let's say you had a luxurious palace with 15 bedrooms inside. How many of those could you actually use to sleep? The amount of space you need is basically something like 2 meters by 1 meter, right? But for most people, you could not even use a greater amount of space. So the idea that one endeavors for huge amounts of facility which are not actually even needed, you can see how much of a distracting factor that is. And then, of course, we don't have infinite amounts of time at our disposal. So if we don't spend time for Krishna and we spend it instead for expanding our material acquisitions, then we have less time for Krishna. And then the complications arise. If you start off with a 1-bedroom flat, then you go up to a 3-bedroom house, and then maybe you expand even more to multiple stories and a large, gigantic palace by the end of it. Do you know what your council tax bill will be at the end of that? It'll be quite large. Your outgoings will be large. Then your car will have to be upgraded because those you now associate with will not be impressed if you turn up in your Nissan Micro or whatever it is. You're going to have a few upgrades there socially, your clothes. The whole lot will have to expand. And it can be very innocent. Oh, you just want a little extra this. The consequence of that little extra this is that you need a little extra of a lot more in life in general. And that is the reality, and that consumes people's time. So for each person, they choose what they spend their time on and what is a priority for them. And for devotees, we are learning that action in this world is meant to elevate us and allow us to exit this world, then we tend not to be so passionate about achieving material items and expanding them. So this is easier said than done, especially if you happen to be around others who are thinking in diametrically the opposite way, which is often and very commonly the situation with all devotees, that there will be many others in your lives that are thinking in diametrically opposite terms. And you will somehow have to just manage the situation to the best of your ability. But if internally you have a desire to make do with the minimum and give your best to Krishna, then he will guide you during that whole process, even when you have to expand, etc. Let's look at another one. Satisfied with gain which comes of its own accord. What's the advantage of that? Okay, I'm going to pick on a few people now. Ganesh Prabhu, can you give us some enlightenment on this point?
I can try to say something. Satisfied with grain which comes of its own accord. If it comes of its own accord, you didn't do anything to get it. So you should be satisfied from whatever comes. You shouldn't be like, I want more when you really didn't do anything to get it.
Yes.
I think.
What is potentially a disadvantage with, let's say, aspiring for something that is way in excess of what comes naturally?
You'll spend a lot of time doing it and you'll get very stressed. And
Yes.
your mind will be very disturbed.
Okay. And then let's say you achieve what you wanted. What's going to be the problem after that?
You want more.
You want more? And
Yeah.
the factor is that you will need to expend a lot of effort to maintain it.
Mm.
See, there's one fact in life, that when you over-endeavor for something, over-endeavor, and of course that has different meanings for different people in their capabilities and capacities. But if you over-endeavor for something, when you actually get it, it actually becomes a drain on you, because just to maintain that state requires an unnatural level of effort from yourself. If something doesn't naturally come to you in a way that you're satisfied, now I don't mean we stop all effort or we do that, but everyone should know different thresholds in their own capacities. There's like a threshold of healthy challenge, then there's excessive aspirations, and then perhaps even more than that, excessive over-endeavoring for something, high ambition. Those who are highly ambitious are also highly stressed. And then once your ambitions are fulfilled, then the stress of maintaining those becomes very difficult. If, let's say you work very hard for a particular job or a particular role, but that role is actually above your capability in a company. So you've applied for something that's actually above your inherent ability, but somehow through a lot of effort and stress, you got it. Is your life going to be peaceful afterwards in that role? It's not. If it was that difficult for you to get that role in the first place, it gives you an insight into what's going to be expected and required of you to maintain and function within that role properly. And so you have to make a decision at the end of the day. What is your capacity? What are your goals? What do you hope to gain from any endeavor? And there is always a sliding scale for each person. You will have to just choose your points. What is correct endeavor? What is a sufficient ambition for me with my social responsibilities and my situation, my family, my setup, the place I live? for me, what is sufficient and adequate, and what gives me a healthy challenge, and then what comes into the category of over-endeavor. But people get completely burnt out by developing artificial fantasies and ambitions for items that are basically material and temporary. And they really cause themselves mental health problems. It's widespread now. People's ambitions have exceeded their capacities to actually meet them. And as a result, people are not peaceful. And there is one underlying cause. Of course, there can be many causes for it, but that is one almost driving force under it. That people's aspirations have no longer become sensible and contained. They've become exuberant. So these principles are given in the Gita, but they have significant consequences when we don't follow them. Free
Very
from
cool.
that.
I have a question. Sorry. So my question is, what if these goals are like our dharma per se, as in, you know, like Arjuna didn't want to fight in the war, but he kind of had to, like, it was in a way a goal because he knows that that's right. What in that scenario?
Well, that doesn't count as over-endeavor. Sometimes the activity may be very, very intense. And I think we touched on it in one of the previous lessons that, you know, different people have, we were talking about it in connection with varnas, different occupations that people have, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Brahmana, Shudra. And for example, a Kshatriya is meant to do some heavy physical stuff, and it's challenging and it's tough and but the Kshatriya can remain happy even while doing that heavy work, heavy fighting work and whatever. If you put a Brahmana in that same role, expected to do the same thing, you might fall apart because the Brahmana is not suited for that level of exertion or whatever. However, if you ask the Kshatriya to perform a level of austerity and penance that the Brahmana does routinely, the Kshatriya would also fall apart. Because it's just not in their capacity to do that level of discipline. So for each person, there are different traits and tasks, which even though they're very difficult, the person is somehow satisfied within those areas. When the Brahmana is performing penances, austerities, and trying to exceed those, yes, it's difficult. That's the whole point of it. It's the meaning of austerity. But they don't fall apart. They're able to function. It's a challenge that works for them. Same when the Kshatriya is fighting an opponent. Yes, it's not easy at all. It's deadly. You can be killed any instant. But the fighter is happy in that arena. So there's circumstances where we have to put in levels of effort, high effort, but you have to see whether the overall ambition is beyond what's necessary. That's where the issue really comes. Ultimately, if you have to do your duty, that's your prescribed duty, it's what's expected of you, then you should endeavor to the best of your ability. And it should be, you should also be aware of your own mental setup and your own situation, and you should know when you're going a bit over the top. You should always be aware when we're going a bit over the top. Now, everyone can do that for some period of time. We all have that ability to over-endeavor for periods of time. Flight or fight, and then your adrenaline surge and all of that. You cannot continue doing that for extended periods of time. It's extremely unhealthy, highly stressful. You should not be constantly in tension. So only you will be able to assess at which point your endeavor is now getting into another level of problems for you. But really, with this kind of advice from the Gita, and even from the Nectar of Instruction, Atyahara Prayasascha Prajalpanyamagraha. Have you done Nectar of Instruction yet? That's coming soon, is it?
Yeah, it's coming.
Okay.
It will come afterwards.
Fine. So atyahara, over endeavor, is touched on in that verse. It's one of the 6 items that we should be avoiding. Atyahara means over acquisition. Prayas means excessive endeavor. Prajalpa means talking nonsense. Niyamagra, following rules and regulations excessively. Janasanga, associating with worldly people. And lowliam, greed. Or the greed to associate with worldly people. So these are items that are best avoided for practicing devotees. But especially of those, whether you're a devotee or not, the endeavor part should be moderate and should be sensible. And, yeah, we don't get the balance right sometimes.
Guruji, may I have a question?
Yes, Guru.
I would like to ask, Kshatriya class were vegetarian too, or not at that time?
Not generally or always. Yes, there are different. It's definitely not the case that in Vedic civilization everyone was vegetarian. And Kshatriyas would sometimes hunt, and they would sometimes eat meat also. And yeah, there's an allowance there for that. They're not free from sinful acts. That is there. They will have to suffer the consequences of those sinful acts. But it's licensed for them, because as part of their activities, one example that's given is they practice their skills, their archery and fighting skills, and at the same time they stop overpopulation of ferocious creatures in the forest, for example. And so in the process of that, they may kill different animals to learn that. They'll kill smaller creatures and like that. And some of them will eat it, definitely. But yeah, there's almost different expectations for different folks. Kshatriyas will often have more sense gratification also. They will also have some drinks. They will enjoy with a few women, for example. They'll do those things, and there'll be different grades of Kshatriyas, those who are more exalted and more in the category of something called Raja Rishi. So Raja Rishi is basically a king, but with the saintly character of a Brahmana. They won't indulge in any of this. They will be much more differently situated. But others sort of, and the word Kshatriya is a broader description. It doesn't refer just to a king, because how many kings can you have in a place? It's it's not just kings, it's the ruling class in general, which will include fighters of all kinds, those who rule, those who are involved in that administration. So yeah, it's a very broad kind of system you have. And Kshatriyas do hunt, and there are some other hunters who hunt as well. And Mrigari and Narad Muni, those are famous stories. Yes, so it's especially important for those practicing a path of pure bhakti to be free from animal killing. Because it is something that is unmerciful. It's not, it causes you to develop an exploitative mentality against others, that this person may be used for me. Now, you see, when we present this topic or discuss it in the world in general, we also have to be realistic that there's all sorts of things spoken by different people, including devotees, but our bodies are clearly capable of surviving on both meat and vegetables, etc. And there are even some occasions where Prabhupada writes in one of his purports that if there is no other option available, if there's an emergency situation, then meat eating can be taken under these circumstances. And on another occasion, Prabhupada says, actually becoming vegetarian is not our goal. He said even monkeys are vegetarian. But the fact is that Krishna has recommended this to us. And there are other verses in the Bhagavatam which are to do with this, non-violence towards animals and things like that. So we are trying to follow a path which brings us maximum purity and connection with Krishna. And along the way, there becomes no question for us to engage in such a heavily sinful, bloody activity of killing another creature for our own subsistence when there's no need to. So in the Vedic, the whole environment in general, yes, there are all sorts of people around. It's not that in Vedic culture only the saints existed. No, you've got a whole society full of all sorts of characters, miscreants, rogues, dacoits, thieves. But in a Vedic culture, what happens is they're all guided and controlled, you could say almost, by laws which are of a high standard of Krishna consciousness. That's a more broader perspective on the subject. Let's look at this one, free from duality. What does that mean? What does duality mean?
Good times, bad times, happiness.
Okay. I mean, some of those things are not in your control, but think of duality from the sense of what you can do about it.
How I react to it.
Mm-hmm. And especially,
like most of us have a tendency when we are suffering, we then focus more on Lord, God, Krishna, whichever name you call, and say, why is this happening to me? But when I'm in good times, when I'm enjoying, I'm prosperous, I never ask, like, am I eligible for this? Why am I getting all of it? So both is needed for me, both is required at that point of time. Any lessons that I need to learn, or what is my eligibility based on my past birth? So that way I shouldn't be affected by it. I need to practice that. Day one, it doesn't happen. Easier said than done. But with time, with knowledge, one should try moderating that experience and understand that and do that. That is my, in a novice way, I'm trying to explain, Prabhuji.
No, that's good. Many important sort of aspects there within that. Okay, let me ask you, what words come to your mind when we use this term duality? Think from the scripture, different verses or different things you've heard in Krishna consciousness. What words come to your mind when we talk about duality?
Success or failure?
Success or failure? Okay, that's more an end result. Something you do directly.
I don't know.
Sorry, Prabhu?
I don't know, Prabhu.
By duality, does it mean more the ideology of dualism in the sense of like materialistic and the soul sort of thing? Or is it referring more of like good and bad?
Yeah, it's more along those lines.
Which one? Sorry.
The last one, good or bad.
Okay.
So think in terms of your thought processes. I'll give
Identification with the body, Prabhu.
Sorry?
Identification with the body. So those differences arise from our senses, heat and cold, happiness and despair. These things arise from our senses, from attachment to the senses. And so the mind becomes disturbed by it. So we become disturbed by the dualities of material existence. So if we're free from duality, we accept all of those dualities of material existence as simply Krishna's mercy. If I'm too hot, okay, it's Krishna's mercy. I'm too hot. It's fine. I live with it. It's Krishna desires it for me. I'm too cold. Okay, well, I have to accept this. It's Krishna's mercy. So we just see ourselves as constantly at Krishna's mercy, as opposed to having this aversion or attraction to the dualities of material existence.
That's good. I think you've become very warm there in that last bit. Aversion, attraction. These are very important points in connection with this topic. Those are under your control. Aversion, attraction. Other terms you can, that spring to mind: hankering, lamentation.
Yeah.
You can develop a deep fixation or a desire for something, or a detachment. One is duality basically means you really like something or you really dislike something. Or even, it doesn't have to be at extremes, it can just be like or dislike. And that's in your control, even though frequently it is as a result of our conditioning.
Yes, it's a mind that is discriminating always. This is acceptable, not acceptable.
Yes. But most people don't follow a process of thinking before adopting that stance. It comes automatically. So actually, it is a very handy tip to pause before coming up with an opinion on a subject. Often, we develop an opinion on all sorts of things. You go up and down the pubs of the country, especially on a Friday night or Saturday night, especially if you go through central London, you can pop into all these places sometimes, and there's experts there around every table with a few pints in front of them, and they're experts in how to run the government, how to sort out the economy, what our foreign policy should be, how to have law and order, how to have free enterprise. All these people who are half drunk are all experts also at the same time. That's the irony, right? They all have such a high opinion of themselves. They're chattering up and down in every single place, and they actually don't have a clue. But what they think is so important to them and has to be very boisterously proclaimed to everyone around them. That's called forming an opinion without having much basis for doing so. Because none of them even have the facts at hand by which they can form an opinion on many subjects that they consider. Yes, of course, everyone has a right to an opinion. We're not saying you don't have a right to think what you want. But what we're trying to learn here is how to develop refined thinking. That isn't just automatic. As a consequence of duality, as a consequence of our, you could say, deficient intellect, but rather, how can we actually contemplate a subject before we decide what the actual correct thing is? That requires a little pause. So I don't like this. Or maybe we should just step back for just a few seconds and think, actually, hang on, why don't I like this? Say in the ashram, I'll give you a few ashram examples. In the ashram, sometimes someone will tell you to do something. Do this. This is like a service that needs to be done. And you really don't want to do it. It's just something coming up and you just don't want it. You have no interest in it. Try and step back for a moment and think, what is it that's causing me to be so resistant to this thing? Is it that I just don't like the person? Or is it just I did this service in the past and I didn't like it? Is there actually good reason for it? You'll find probably on many occasions there isn't really a good reason for it. And if you think it through, you might actually see that it was a good opportunity for a different type of growth or purification. Not always, not always. I'm saying just a more contemplative approach to situations that come in front of us is useful. That's just an ashram example. There's so many other examples you could give. So many other examples at work, at school, and just playing sport or whatever. What is it that I'm really against? Is some aspect of my sense gratification going to be impeded? Is that why I'm feeling upset or angry about something? That's often the answer. That is often the answer. And we read earlier, one should be devoid of all right desires for sense gratification. But it is a fact that my sense gratification will be impeded in some way if I do this. So we have to think deeply. And therefore, a contemplative mentality is needed for us to be really free from duality.
Prabhuji,
Yes?
Prabhuji, is the question when people talk about it's about my self-respect, or, is that a derived version of sense gratification? Like you need to respect me. I may be on the right and I've done everything right. And if still people say certain things, I've heard even with many senior devotees and all in various sessions. And unfortunately, I've seen some not so healthy interactions with certain senior devotees. And the common thing that comes in, like as if I'm not appreciated. I didn't get that self-respect. So is that an essence of some kind of sense gratification? When I see with the initiated devotees and all.
It can be.
Okay.
It definitely can be. And it's useful to just remember that in our movement, it's actually very healthy sometimes to consider the movement to be a bit like a hospital. We use this analogy.
Okay.
And what types of people come to the movement? Those who need treatment, right? So we're all on a path of needing some treatment. And yes, some of us are going to cough, some of us are going to splutter, some of us have deep-seated ailments which aren't going to be fixed by 2 days in the ward. They're going to need some longer doses of treatment, medication that goes on for years, maybe. And some devotees may be in certain roles. Definitely, you may know they're not qualified for those roles. You can see that their behavior isn't there from your perspective.
Yeah, it makes you feel uncomfortable, definitely.
Yes, and you won't necessarily feel confident with that. But there is a deeper aspect to it that with them being in their role, Krishna may want you to learn some lessons and develop certain things. So a devotee's focus is never on the external situation. You see, karmis in the world in general are focused on trying to change the world to make it a better fantasy. They're in this idea that one day this world will be perfect. There will be justice for all. There'll be no miscreants. I'll have plenty of money. Everyone will have plenty of money. There'll be no damage to the environment. There'll be everything will be like a Teletubby landscape. It'll be lovely. That's not reality. That's simply Maya, because Krishna said right from the beginning, this world dukkalayam shashvatam. It's a place of misery. It's never going to be perfect. You can spend your whole life trying to change everything around you. But actually, what the Gita recommends is that you change your mentality and approach. But I'll just touch on a couple of items you mentioned there, that self-respect. And you should also consider this in the context of Lord Chaitanya's, the verse, right? Trinadapi sunichena tarorapi saheshnana amani na manadena kirtaniya sadahari. One should be devoid of all desire for one's own respect and should be ready to offer respects to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy names of the Lord constantly. It is beneficial for our spiritual outlook and for attracting the mercy of the Lord if we do come to a stage of not desiring respect for ourselves. That is desired, and we have many, many examples from that. Haridas Thakur is the most prominent one. Prahlad Maharaj also, he was severely mistreated continuously.
Yes.
Yet he had only pleasant words for his father. Despite all of that horrific stuff he put up with, he had only pleasant words for those who were tormenting him. These two are exceptional personalities. Now, I would just caution one thing also, that especially in terms of self-respect, we have to be cautious not to let people walk over us also in a destructive way. And see, there are some areas where it doesn't really matter what someone says to you. For example, if you go to a supermarket and say that the lady on the till says something that's unpleasant or makes a derogatory remark or something, that would be a really good time to practice Trinadapi Sunichena and to not bother. Because ultimately it's of no consequence whatsoever. And all that's happened is that your ego has come up and her ego has clashed with your ego. It's actually of no consequence whatsoever. You'll probably never see her again. So there's no point expending any energy on the matter. But there could be other situations where, for example, you're at work and there may be those around you who are trying to demean you, put you down for the purpose of their own career progress, so that eventually they may replace you or something like that. You have to be a little intelligent with all this as well and understand what is your real benefit in all this. You're working so that you can maintain yourself, your family, and serve Krishna as well with it. Therefore, you should take certain steps to protect your work. And if someone is causing, is creating circumstances to bring you down, and you know what the outcome of that will be, then you're within your rights to stand up for yourself as a service to Krishna. But not because you particularly care what the other person thinks. We don't really. Our sources are our acharyas and shastra. But we just have to function in this world somehow. So application of this principle requires some intelligence. And there are circumstances when we should not react. We should be completely humble, more tolerant than a tree, lower than a blade of grass. That really is the epitome of tolerance. But then there are other times. Someone's coming to harm you or your family. Are you going to sit there humbly? I suggest you don't. To the extent possible. You have a duty of care to them also. So it requires intelligence. Generally in this world, we tend to be more protective of our ego. And so therefore that should be reduced in generally all circumstances. Because we don't want someone to turn into a state of complete depression also. They feel entirely worthless, where they have no function in life. Sometimes that does happen, where they literally are so in such a poor condition that there's nothing auspicious or positive in their thinking. And that's a very dangerous situation to be in. We don't want that either. And so everyone should have, people that you can go to when strange circumstances turn up. You should have. And ideally keep praying to Krishna when those happen.
Yeah.
All right, let's look at the next one. Does not envy. I guess
can I ask something regarding the previous thing?
Yes, okay, yeah, that's fine.
So basically, what if something they preach is not something they follow? So by that I mean, so I'm in a KC SOC, right? And so the president of my society, right, he obviously in KC SOC, you assume that everyone should follow what Prabhupada said and his teachings, but yet he goes clubbing every week. So, and I'm like, what? And then he said no to me when I wanted to do Damodar Ashtakam, and show, do something like that. And I'm like, this is KC SOG. I thought it was more about, so what should I do in that type of scenario or situation? I'm so confused.
That's quite a fun one and a tricky one.
Because I can't really do anything as a first year.
I think you should try and get whatever benefit you can from maybe others in that society, those who are a bit more kind of together. Kind of remain the well-wisher, but don't follow necessarily.
Yeah.
There's a very, very, very simple thing you can do. You don't have to follow the advice of a bogus person. Or if their behavior or their suggestions or something is not entirely aligned.
another thing, right? He was like, "Oh, we should all go to Domino's and have pizza." And I'm like, you know, the tomato sauce has garlic and onion in it. I was like half confused that he actually didn't know that.
What you should do is try and convince him that we should all go to Govinda's instead.
Oh wait, we don't have a Govinda's here.
Oh, where are you?
I'm Southampton.
Oh, Southampton. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, in London, yeah, you would have the Govinda's option.
Yeah, no, I always go there. Instead of that, I was thinking more of going to like a vegan sort of like, you know, restaurant sort of thing. Because at least, you know, Western people usually have like, oh, if you say allergy, they tend to like, they clean everything and you're like, they don't do that sort of thing. And vegan cakes are always really nice anyways.
I think you know what see, different people are they have a different sort of level of Krishna consciousness in mind also.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it sounds like definitely that standard that's being presented there is not necessarily the highest. And
But I think Krishna purposely put me in this situation so I actually understand more about the world. And maybe
yeah,
that's why he was for me to like preach this sort of thing. Like
yes.
the actual what is right and what is wrong. That's why they put me as the Gita coordinator. So I was like, okay, what should I do? But yeah, I think maybe that's what Krishna wanted. He wanted to put me in a situation completely different with people that I'm not aware of. Because in London, most of the KC stock already has enough devotees.
Yes.
As in, I'm saying like they have a good community or like that sort of sense. So I apologize beforehand if I ask any questions that are like a bit of like iffy, like, oh, what does an atheist think? Or how does it look from a different perspective? Because then I would be able to tackle when someone asks me those questions.
It's very important. It's very important. This Bhakti Sastri course is one, and definitely Bhakti Vaibhava afterwards, where we
No,
we
my
try
mom
and
is telling me, so
we try and churn, you know, topics that often
yeah.
didn't get discussed. This is often a good forum where, enlightened by the Gita, you raise these things. And so, yeah, no, it's welcome.
Thank you, Haribol.
Okay, let's do does not envy quickly. Yeah, is that easy always? Okay, let's look at the definition of the word envy, because this is something we should understand this thing properly. What does envy mean normally, say in English?
Jealousy.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Jealousy, right? Jealousy is the typical envy. My envy arose when I saw he had this instead. Something, no? It's got neighbors driving around with a bigger car. And your envy arises. Why I wish you know, that's envy. But there's another way that Prabhupada uses this word. We should know this also. And that is not so much in the sense of jealousy, that is in the sense of ill will. So feeling some kind of ill will towards others has often been termed envy by Srila Prabhupada. Now, the two things are very connected. They're definitely there, because with jealousy, there is this kind of a negativity, isn't there? There's negativity towards the other person. But not always is jealousy the right term. So we should analyze this with these two meanings, that is not jealous of anyone, and the second aspect does not feel ill will towards anyone. Both of those are correct ways to understand this phrase. Now, jealousy should be quite easy to deal with, although in practice, because it's not an intellectual thing, it's an emotional thing, you can't process it immediately always. Right? How can you easily deal with jealousy?
You could take like as a way of growth, in the sense of, oh yeah, oh my days, they're really good. They're like getting, I don't know, in exam scores, they're getting the highest possible sort of thing. So if they're getting really high, and instead of like saying, oh, you can use that in a way to like motivate yourself to do even better on your exams, like in the competitiveness. Or for example, when it comes to Sheba, or like I see like a lot of Matajis doing like very nice Sheba of like garlands or like flower garlands or decorating and all sort of stuff. So I'm like, wow, that's amazing. although that's not really a jealousy. I'm like more jealous. Oh yeah, they're really skilled. I'm more like, oh, I want to learn. How do I do this myself? Like, because
Yeah,
we have
I wouldn't.
deities and
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's jealousy, really. Jealousy is when there's some negativity comes into your mind rather than appreciating someone else's skill, you know? If there are any sort of situations when, say, something negative comes, like for example, take this car example. Let's say you've just got your car and your neighbor drives by with a much bigger car or something that you really like, and this envy arises. How can you deal with it? Very easily in your own mind.
Remembering that everything belongs to Krishna, even if we see someone being glorified and we don't think they're deserving of it for whatever reason. This comes back to gain of its own accord, knowing that everything belongs to Krishna. That glorification is Krishna's glorification. It's not glorification of the person. That car should be utilized for Krishna's service. He's not the proprietor of it, nor am I the proprietor of these
Yeah.
items that are in my vicinity.
That's the practicing devotee's outlook on seeing every item as actually ultimately for Krishna. Any other platforms you could just view that situation based on our chapter 3?
I would say that everything is materialistic. When we are talking about envy or ill will, we always think about, like, for example, what you gave of a car. It is materialistic. You have to come to the point to realize that what is this car used for? Is for me to get from one place to the other, probably to work or to the temple. It's just going to serve the same purpose if I drive a BMW or drive a Kia. Uh, it's just going to take me from one point to the other. It's going to have the same aircon and just comfort and heating and blah. So instead of thinking of more materialistic ones in life, you should focus on more spiritual aspect of it and know the reason why a particular object is used for that purpose.
Okay, well, that's very similar to Simon's point, the view that those items are also... Okay, give me a materialistic argument. A good materialistic reason to deal with your jealousy.
Maybe not to have that luxury things in our life, or living in a moderate or simple life, to not become jealous with others.
Okay, so if we, yes, that is more on the spiritual kind of sense also, but no, it's something. Okay, let me ask you, how did the person get that car or whatever asset it was? Or
Hare Krishna. Is it the result of his karma or their karma?
yes, exactly. He has got something that is the result of his karma. He's got this. And I've got something which is the result of my karma. And where is the question of any comparison between the two? He's getting what he deserves. I'm getting what I deserve. Immediately, you can take yourself out of this idea that both of us are the same. That's actually one thing we learn while we're acting on the platform of equality. We learn that no one is equal to anyone else in this world. Right? Now, that shocks people sometimes, but it's a fact. Because I'm a unique person. Each of you is a unique person. Each of us has different strengths, different capabilities, different histories of karma, both good and bad. We have different abilities, different faculties, different outlooks on life, different behaviors, different mentalities. We're not the same by any stretch of the imagination. Probably just the backgrounds of the people in this room are all vastly different. But in the platform of Krishna consciousness, we're able to talk on the same subject from the same perspective. But see, each living entity is connected to Krishna, and that's the uniqueness of that relationship. And according to the living entity's karma, they get what they deserve and what they desire. And so there's never any competition between the living entities as such. It's all between the living entity and Krishna to work out what's due to each person. So we can simply observe something, and we could, rather than thinking it's not fair, I should have it, that's where the jealousy element comes in. We can simply say, oh, isn't it amazing? Krishna's given him what he deserved. A very easy way to deal with it. It's nothing to do with me. Is basically the crux of this line of thinking. It's nothing to do with me. It's whatever he deserves. That's the jealousy aspect. Now, the ill will aspect requires a bit of different treatment. How do you avoid having ill will towards others? Ill will basically means you desire something bad for them, or you wish to wish some negativity for them.
There is
Eating-
Krishna
oh.
residing.
Okay, let's have Vidisha and then...
Sorry, Prabhuji. Sorry. I was trying to say that there is, just like if my soul has Paramatma, that person's soul also have Krishna. So that person's soul, I mean, like they're more crowded with all these material aspects and all the extent of bad materialistic and all sense gratification is to in a superlative nature than somebody who is like. So I have to think that way. So that's why that person is trying to be too bad, or, you know, at least for me personally, it's hard to draw that conclusion. Apart from spiders, I don't have any. The only when I see spider, and I know that I also nowadays I ponder, I'm like, just vanish. Previously, I used to kill, because now it brings a thought in me that also has Krishna. But
Yeah.
that's a way to think and moderate our mind, I feel.
What about mosquitoes?
Mosquitoes, yeah, I
They're
don't
also
come
troublesome.
across as much unless I'm in India in certain parts, but yeah. But I'm definitely, I can give an example. The only thing is spider, I'm like, just can you vanish, please? But yes, it's very hard when somebody is trying to hamper your life or in a negative way or bring harm, to think that person has Krishna essence in him, in his soul. It's very hard, but that is one way to think. And then he has not got into this journey that we are fortunate and privileged. And so therefore he is still in that status. So yeah, in day-to-day stuff, when we see, whether in tube or you come across, that's a thought nowadays come across in our mind. I'll be very honest, it was not there even a few years back. I would have a feeling of reiterating it back. If someone is throwing 4 stones at me, I would definitely feel like throwing 1 stone at that person.
So it changes with Krishna consciousness, it seems.
Yes.
Yes, that's very nice. When you hear the philosophy practice, something calms down inside also.
Definitely.
But let's touch on a few points you mentioned there in terms of, you mentioned Krishna, the Paramatma, and there's one verse in the Gita which will come later. Aham bija pradapita. I am the seed-giving father of all living entities. Every single person, whether we like him or not, is actually one of Krishna's prajas, one of Krishna's offspring in one sense. Not physically, but yes, he's one of Krishna's charges. Does it make sense for us to envy a person who is the son of the very person we're trying to learn to love? Does that please the Father? Intellectually, and when you consider it, it doesn't, does it? It doesn't. And it's very easy not to feel any ill will towards a person, because as the pure spirit soul, they have nothing to do with even their current actions. The person has nothing to do with their current actions. What is there is what you're seeing, the effects of is contaminated consciousness and coverings due to Maya. mind, intelligence, and ego, subtle body is thoroughly corrupted, infected by lust. That should never sway your mind from considering that to be the person themselves. So that does require some moments of reflectivity. And it also requires us to be walking around, not seeing bodies when we see people. It requires us to be walking around seeing spirit souls, just temporarily entrapped in bodies of different sizes, shapes, and abilities. That is something for us to practice actively. And then, how can you feel ill will towards someone who is dear to Krishna? Prabhupada gives the example of, say, two servants massaging their master, or the guru has two disciples, right? And there's a problem between the two disciples. But their job is to massage the body of the guru. And so one disciple starts hurting the guru. And thinking that the guru will think the other disciple is causing me pain. What is the end result of this? The end result is that the guru is in pain. He couldn't care less about what's going on between the two disciples. And nor could Krishna care less what the temporary, illusory issue they have between each other, all to do with their faulty mind, ego, and intelligence, all temporary. Krishna is simply thinking, my relationship with them is being harmed by this. So that's the perspective you need. Who am I here to serve, actually? Was it between me and him? Or between myself and her? Or was it always and has always been between me and Krishna? That's a very, very important thing to contemplate. Well, I'll leave you to contemplate that for some time, because we'll take a break. We're overdue, 10 minutes. Let's take a break, and we'll see you back in 10 minutes. We won't have such a long session after that, but maybe another 20 minutes or so. Okay? All right. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, I had like extra points. Do you want me to say them after break, or do you want me to just tell you now? Sort of thing for that.
I'll tell you what you could do. If you don't mind, could you just put them in the chat?
Okay, yeah.
Just note
I
them to
tapped
me.
it out.
I'll have a quick look at them, and then when we come back, we will address them.
Thank you. Hey,
Right.
boy.
Okay, shall we continue? Okay, so let's continue with the next portion of the chapter, which deals with sacrifice.
Prabhu, I've sent the points I told you earlier on the chat.
Oh yes, did you want me to comment? I've replied. I said it's true what you
Oh.
said. Do you
Yeah, no, it was just me saying some other points for that answers your question, sort of thing.
Yes. No,
I
they're
didn't
very,
see your message, but it's fine.
yeah, they're very good. They're very good points. Yeah, it's a tough one. Think
Yeah,
of the
because I was thinking, because if you have to address certain points to someone that doesn't believe in, like, you know, Krishna, how would you tackle that? Or like, how would you somehow tell them sort of thing, if that makes sense? Because you still because one of the reasons I'm doing Bhakti Sastri is because I want to preach to everyone, sort of thing, not just, you know,
Yes.
devotees.
However, what I would say is that there are some points I wouldn't actually engage in a discussion with some people, especially if they're non-devotees, because they need to develop a foundation before they'll actually be able to understand the principles you're giving. So
Just being
sometimes,
more of like KC sort of thing as well.
yeah, so sometimes it's more useful to try to give them other things and not so much on those specific topics. You can have you can give a general sort of stance on it, but anything more detailed will require them to have a basis of accepting the Gita before they'll actually accept the words that you present from the Gita.
Yeah, that's
You know?
where the issue comes, because a lot of people, in a way that I try to like look at it, because I do philosophy, so I was more like looking, how would this be linked in like our everyday life without like, you know, having the idea of, you know, the supreme being personality of Godhead. Is more like, because a lot of the teachings you can apply it in the sense of, oh, you just take it, these are two friends, two good characters, but the ideas like karma and all of that, those sort of teachings you can still apply in your daily life, sort of thing.
Well, if you get into karma, then you kind of immediately invoking Krishna there within it.
Yeah, no.
The system of karma can't run without a kind of like a
Yeah.
karma controller.
But then for someone who's atheist, they'll be like, oh yeah, karma does exist, because if I would do certain amount of work for like an exam, I do get good results, sort of thing. That is
Yeah,
the sort of argument.
see, that's the thing. You can try what you can.
You
But you,
can, but it's a bit.
yeah, but you'll also have to see what the purpose of it is, because you're never ultimately someone determined to be an atheist. You're never going to make much inroads there. If they have
Yeah.
if they have some kind of capacity for a different outlook on life, and with your arguments, maybe you can help them in that direction. That's useful. Otherwise, it'll largely be a waste of your time.
Yeah. It's because in philosophy you have to discuss from different perspectives, look at different things, right?
Yes.
But what I've seen most, because when you study ancient Greek, is that it's very similar with like a lot of his teachings, so like of like Hinduism and that sort. And I was like, did they go through trading? Because I think a lot of ideas are like gone through trading. So a lot of cultures already have our ideas, sort of thing, because of trading and that sort of thing. And
Yeah.
I find it weird that our religion, in a way, is called Hinduism, because it just means people that lived in that area, sort of thing, near like the Sindhu River. I was doing a bit of Sanskrit as well. It's just interesting, like
Yeah,
how.
yeah. It's all interesting, isn't it? And especially
Yeah.
our real spiritual focus becomes culturally. You'll see most
Yeah.
religions are very culturally defined these days. Culturally defined in terms of a tract of land or a particular way of doing something or a particular language.
Yeah.
But
Oh, almost
interestingly, yeah,
that
Krishna
well.
consciousness is a far more broader perspective in terms of this pure focus on the soul.
And there's like a lot of link with science, like for example, you know, science that said that everything originated from this area in Africa, like all human beings came from there. But if you read our Shastras, it says that Kali, or like Kali Yuga in a way, started from there. Like Kali was there, and then it kind of dispersed, sort of thing. Like
I haven't read that myself in our Shastra, so
oh,
we need to just be
I'm
careful with what we take as being authentic Shastra. You know, there's a whole
yeah.
bunch of stuff which is out there, and it's
But it's kind of linked with that. I think it was a Prabhu. It was in a lecture that said
yeah.
it. So that's how I remember.
So take
But
that with a
yeah,
pinch of salt, because I
yeah,
never
no,
heard
I think that
Prabhupada say
probably
that in a lecture either. So
yeah, no. But sort of thing, or like another one that's very common that I do believe is like, you know, cow pee and cow dung can be heavily used. And now scientifically they found, oh, there's like a lot of benefits, sort of thing.
yeah, yeah.
That is a undeniable fact. So a lot of
Mhm.
things that is in our Shastras is like very linked with
Oh,
science as
definitely,
well. And
definitely.
it's not just,
If you
yeah.
analyze our Shastras, there's so much there, and that's why let's continue delving into it,
Sorry.
and it's specifically this concept of sacrifice, which is now going to come up. So, sacrifice. Let's get to the
We
right.
can't see your board, by the way, if you're
I know
presenting.
I switched it off because we covered most of the stuff on there. So, we're going to move on now to the next bits. Right. Let's go to text 25. Okay. Yes. Ines, could you read 25 for us? The English.
Sorry, it's because I'm using Better Vase as a thing.
Okay. Someone else? Simon?
Some
Oh, did you
yogis
say? Okay, it's fine. Sorry.
Some yogis perfectly worship the demigods by offering different sacrifices to them, and some offer sacrifices in the fire of the supreme Brahman.
Right. So different processes of worship and sacrifice are going to be touched on here. Some of them perfectly offer sacrifices to demigod. Offer sacrifices to different demigods, and others are focused more on the Brahman effulgence. Then 26. Let's have Mazar, please.
Some sacrifice the hearing process and the senses in the fire of mental control, and others sacrifices the objects of the senses in the fire of the senses.
That can all seem rather kind of tongue twisty or confusing, but yes, the point is that when you engage your particular sense in a program of sacrifice, it is said that you sacrifice that sense, if that makes sense. So we'll just touch on the purport from Srila Prabhupada here. And obviously there are different types of sacrifice. As I hinted earlier, you know, with the Varnas, there are different expectations for different Varnas. For different ashrams, the intensity and the practice recommended for each is also slightly different. There are different differences of emphasis also. And so Prabhupada speaks here, and you can read those later. It's quite a long thing, but Prabhupada speaks about brahmacharis, grihasthas, vanaprasthas, sannyasis. And he comes on to conclude that says at the end, therefore, current in all civilized human society, because marriage on religious principles is currently available in society because that's the way for restricted sex life. This sex life is a type of sacrifice because it is done specifically for a purpose which is connected to Krishna. So sacrifice is something that you undertake some austerity in for a noble cause. That's sacrifice. And sacrifice typically involves you giving up something. But even something like sex life is considered to be a type of sacrifice in terms of the benefits that you get from that process, if it is done religiously and correctly. So you can read through that in detail, because there's different descriptions of the types of processes different people follow here. Let's read 27. Maybe we can have Bidisha for that.
Others who are interested in achieving self-realization through control of the mind and senses offer the functions of all the senses and of the life breath as oblations into the fire of the controlled mind.
When the mind is so solidly fixed and the sense and complete withdrawal from the senses has taken place, then it is as if you're offering you've sacrificed, what does it say exactly? You've sacrificed the functions into the fire of the controlled mind. It's not a literal thing. The controlled mind can absorb all the undesirable aspects that come from our mind and senses when controlled. That's the lesson we're learning here. And that's why we're building up to in a certain way now, where the mind, the subtle body, is going to be increasingly emphasized. And as we head towards, after chapter 5, chapter 6, called Dhyana Yoga, is going to deal extensively with controlling the mind, which is the crux of the majority of our spiritual endeavors. It's actually the center point of it. So without controlling the mind, you cannot really achieve much success. So we're building this up. So you're going to get little insights into it in this chapter. But it's good for us to know different processes that people follow, different yogis, sages, because Arjun will bring them up and Krishna will deal with them. We'll address them also. So let's have 28. 28, Ines, are you
Yeah, I
ready?
can read now.
Okay.
Having accepted strict vows, some become enlightened by sacrificing their possessions, and others by performing severe austerities, by practicing the yoga of eightfold mysticism, or by studying the Vedas to advance in transcendental knowledge.
Yes, yes. People will try all sorts of different things. Some will take strict vows, some will give up their possessions. You know, that's the typical mendicant behavior, to give up possessions and just wander around. Others perform severe austerities, yoga of eightfold mysticism, yam, niyam, asana, dharana, dhyana, pratyahara, all of that. And others by studying the Vedas. They're all trying to do different things. All of these can be considered to be sacrifice of some kind. You are sacrificing something of your freedom. You're sacrificing the facility for your senses to acquire some objects. You're giving it up. So all of these are ways by which people try to advance transcendentally. We're just being given a list of them, basically, not too much detail here. And then 29, it says there's a breath restraint process available, pranayam connected, right? Where the yogis practice this by offering the outgoing breath into the incoming and the incoming into the outgoing, and then they attain a stage of trance. And then there's various variations on all of that. And then text 30, it says all these performers who know the meaning of sacrifice become cleansed of sinful reactions, as if they do it properly. And having tasted the nectar of the results of sacrifices, they advance towards the supreme eternal atmosphere. Words are kept vague here, because many of these will not attain Krishna, but they will advance towards the supreme eternal atmosphere, which could be impersonal liberation, some progress towards it. In fact, for many yogis and jnanis, that is their goal, impersonal liberation. And Krishna says very clearly, without sacrifice, one cannot live happily in this planet or even in this life. So what about your next life? So really, sacrifice is going to be established. It's all very nice having philosophy, knowing how karma works, how this works, but you need to do something else. Something else that's required for you to actually turn your karma into karma yoga. Akarma. To achieve akarma requires you to do something different. In text 33, Krishna makes this point very clear. O chastiser of the enemy, the sacrifice performed in knowledge is better than the mere sacrifice of material possessions. After all, O son of Pritha, all sacrifices of work culminate in transcendental knowledge. When one attempts to acquire transcendental knowledge, and then when one's activities are chosen in subservience of transcendental knowledge, that gives you real results. Sacrifice performed in knowledge has more potency than one performed just with your possessions. So Krishna, you can see how Krishna is getting to a much deeper level of sacrifice, not just the conventional terms that people are familiar with, a much deeper meaning to the whole thing. And transcendental knowledge is at the key, as the crux of this. That's why this whole chapter is called Jnana Yoga, Transcendental Knowledge. Text 34, a very important verse. Vidisha, could you read the Sanskrit and the translation, please?
Yes, it was. This was in the exam. Yeah.
Ah.
Yes.
Oh, do it from memory then, if you've learnt it.
I would be rather comfortable with this. So, tadvidi pranipatena pariprasnena shivaya upadekshani te jnananam jnaninas tattva darshina. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth.
Yes, this is a key verse. You could spend an hour discussing this verse alone. Krishna is saying to Arjuna, and has said in the previous few verses, there are many, many paths that people follow, and they all attempt to attain results through the process of sacrifice. What you should do, Arjuna, is to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master who will give you a very clear direction. But just approaching one and asking questions is not sufficient. Our Vedic system requires a few more things as well as that. Very good to have a mentality of a desire. That's where our spiritual journeys begin. When you question the world, when you question who is God, what am I doing here? What am I even? What is my existence? But something else is required, and these are the ingredients. Approach a spiritual master, inquire submissively, render service. All of those things are connected. Pranipat. What does pranipat mean? It means actually approach in a humble mood, in a process of surrender. Actually, pranipat literally kind of means some kind of obeisance or surrender in a humble way. Pariprashna, inquiries, and sevaya, service. You cannot get knowledge by demanding answers from the Guru. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Imagine a 5-year-old child is demanding answers on a complex question from their father or mother. Tell me the answer, tell me the answer. Explain to me how the rocket flies. I mean, is it possible even without the growth? There's such a gulf of difference between the two capacities of the two people. Demanding is not the way forward. And so the humble submission is the way forward. Goswamis demonstrated this, and actually all devotees demonstrate this, because it's actually the way to acquire knowledge. With submission and with a mood of service, we seek knowledge, and then those who are enlightened by that knowledge or have that knowledge, they can give it to us. Om tad Vishnu paramam padam sada pasyanti surayah Diviva chakshurata tam tade prasa vipanyamo jagravam sasamindate Vishnuryat paramam padam. Just as those with material vision can see the stars in the sky, so the wise and learned devotees can see the supreme abode of Lord Vishnu. Because those praiseworthy and highly spiritually brahmanas can see that abode, they can also reveal it to others. It's a very special benedictional gift that can come from saintly persons. It's not a trivial matter of a trivial debate or anything like that. The knowledge that can come is of substantial, immense consequence, because it is knowledge of the spiritual world. And therefore that requires us to adopt a certain demeanor, a certain behavior. by which the spiritual master judges whether we are ready to receive that knowledge. And then also, along with the knowledge, the blessings come. And that is a very, very powerful system, because for us who are engrossed in this world and are conditioned by this world, there aren't many options for finding out something about the absolute truth, who is beyond and above everything in existence. The only way is through a person or persons in our community, and ISKCON, and devotees in general, those who know. With the help of the devotees, we can discover Krishna. With the help of our spiritual masters, our teachers, our guides. So many people are involved in any person's journey in Krishna consciousness. We need a whole community of people to help us come towards Krishna. And Krishna is there also sprinkling his magic on us as the whole process takes place. He's also doing that. And he's connecting us up with different people so we can achieve our next stage of growth by their assistance. And then he also hopes that we will do the same for others in the future. And that way, it becomes a very natural progress. The whole Vedic culture is, and this principle even applies materially. When we're trying to acquire material knowledge, and the Kshatriyas would learn arts of fighting, etc., from Dronacharya and others, the Pandavas, and they would very submissively serve Lord Ramachandra with Vishvamitra, and they would humbly serve, and in return they would get great benedictions. So it is 3 things we have to remember from this: Pranipat, Pariprashna, and Sevaya. These 3 things: surrender, service, and ask questions. And so those questions should be, ideally, when you see your Guru Maharaj, you shouldn't ask, Guru Maharaj, which color car should I get? I was thinking of blue, but now recently I'm thinking maybe brown might be better. The Guru Maharaj is thinking, look, I couldn't care less which car you get. Just get one and drive to the temple. That's what the spiritual master is thinking. We should ask useful questions. Questions to do with obstacles we have in our lives. Things that are preventing us moving forward in spiritual life. Situations that we cannot overcome through our process of normal inquiry and thinking. Questions that are, in the words of the Bhagavatam, lokahitam. It says in there, your questions are worthy because they relate to the world's welfare. Only questions of this sort are full of completely satisfying the self. In spiritual life, the answer is not the only important thing. Knowing which question to ask is also very, very important. It's actually almost more important in one sense. When your mind is directed towards Krishna as the goal, and you could say growth, personal growth spiritually, then you will ask the right questions which are meant for your advancement. And we can turn to the Goswamis for examples. Lord Sanatana Goswami came before the Lord. Keami, what am I? What am I doing here? Why am I suffering? And he approached Lord Chaitanya, surrendered to him, and then Lord Chaitanya instructed him extensively. Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, and Varanasi, Prayag. And those basic conversations are there in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which maybe you don't read it now, but after this course is finished, have a go through that book, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Very nice, fundamental interactions. So yes, this verse is an absolute key verse, and it defines and underlies our approach in terms of knowing what to do, the purpose of the Guru, the situation of the Guru, the etiquettes. And then the rewards are immense, as I mentioned. Text 35 explains that. It says, when you have obtained real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never again fall into illusion. Because by this knowledge, you will see that all living beings are part of the Supreme, or that they are mine. Right? We were talking about this earlier. It's not between each of us. It's between us and Krishna. We are all connected to Krishna. Yes. And then different explanatory verses go on, and really knowledge is emphasized again. Transcendental knowledge is repeatedly emphasized and glorified. text 40, we should just have a little read of text 40. Mazhar, would you like to read?
But ignorant and faithless persons who doubt the revealed scriptures do not attain God consciousness. They fall down. For doubting soul, there is happiness neither in this world nor in the next.
All right, so obviously this spiritual life is not meant to be blind faith. It's not blind faith that you must believe this and we'll punish you if you don't. That has no value anywhere. Rather, if after receiving proper understanding and proper explanations and having a chance to ask proper questions, as the earlier verses explained, if we still maintain a negative attitude towards the Lord, or we for some reason create reasons why we shouldn't try to follow what's been advised, then we are missing out on the greatest benediction possible. When you receive some transcendental knowledge which will save you from all the miseries of this world, yet somehow you have a doubting nature. You just can't, some people just cannot make a decision and go properly. It's considered a deficiency in terms of Vedic description, that one should be focused. And once a proper decision is made, or with proper understanding, one should engage with it wholeheartedly and wait for the results to manifest. And so here, if someone, despite reading the Gita, despite studying so much, despite having all their questions answered, still keeps creating new issues to have with God, then they won't advance. It won't advance. It may just be a little bit of entertainment exercise for them. Genuine questions are very much welcomed, right? The whole of the Gita, as we said from the start to the end, is full of questions. We're definitely not saying don't ask questions, don't have your doubts clarified. We'll see how Arjun deals with this at the end. Because reading the Gita is two things. Understanding the Gita. It's understanding what Krishna said to Arjun. That's one element of it. That's the whole of the Gita. So many verses are there. The second part is understanding how Arjun understood it. Yeah, understanding how Arjun understood Krishna's words and what he did next. That's the full package of the exchange between the teacher and the disciple, the teacher, student, the guru, disciple. That's the full package. Duryodhan probably heard all this philosophy also before. But his practice of it was totally different to Arjun's. So yes, Krishna concludes at the end by saying, therefore the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed, not with dogma, but with the weapon of knowledge, real knowledge, the knowledge that has just been given in this chapter. Armed with yoga, O Bharat, stand and fight. With this newfound knowledge, my recommendation for you is not to go to the forest and become one of these yogis practicing breath control. My recommendation to you is to get up there and fight. It's such an unusual book, this, isn't it? And thankfully, because spiritual life is not a normal thing. Spiritual world is an extra special, it's like something way beyond our comprehension, like a treasure that we cannot understand even properly. And it requires a very unique presentation full of potency, which we're getting from this Gita. So I'll take a question or two if there is. We've basically recapped chapter 4 today. I completed it and revisited some of the earlier parts. Then we have 2 more chapters left. Chapter 5, which is quite short, and then chapter 6. That's okay. So please read ahead to chapter 5. It's not such a long chapter. And yeah, I'll see you all next week. Okay, thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad
Hare
Gita
Krishna.
ki. Jai.
Jai.
Jai.